Pinkertons Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre Terre. It is not intended for children. Alright. This is Jim Donavan. The time is, well, dinner time, ironically enough. I think I might go vegetarian for a bit after this case, when I get my appetite back. It started on a cold morning. I say cold, but that's by LA standards. It was 63 degrees outside, give or take. I had a thin metal card in my hand. It was emblazoned with, Jim Donavan, you are cordially invited to charity auction and dinner. $10,000 per plate. Fee collected via Bitcoin or Solara only. And then some directions on how to pay. The envelope protecting it from the greasy fingers of the hoi polloi had come with the mail. The card alone must have cost $50. I didn't even know they made metal invitations. I was blindingly confused till I got a call from control. Did you get your invitation? She asked. Why, boss, how great to hear your voice. It's been ages, I retorted with no small air of exasperation. Control's brusqueness belied her petite feminine form. It was usually a charming feature, but there were times it was just a little bit grating. Is there a problem, Agent Donavan? Look, Control, I'm tired. Can you just cut to the chase or fire me? I'm good either way. No, you're too useful. Now quit whining and listen up. There's apparently a huge charity meal event at Castaway. They rebuilt after you took a page out of Jack's book and burned it to the ground. Beautiful view of the golf course. Not surprising they rebuilt. Quiet. One of the chefs that works at Castaway turned informant, tried to blow the lid on something big at this event. He was cagey about details, wanting certain protections before he'd admit to anything. Before he could give any of those details, he jumped off the Magnolia overpass into traffic. Ouch. Bad way to go. A bus full of 7th graders on a field trip to Griffith Observatory will be in therapy until they're drawing Social Security. So, what about the police? This is a weird case, and the apparent suicide looked clean. Nothing links back to Castaway or the charity, which is called the General Welfare Fund. Oh, come on. They're not even trying with that name. It'll be this Friday, Jim. I used one of our shell companies and aliases to get you an invitation. You are a wealthy philanderer. Don't you mean philanthropist? I don't stutter, Jim. Get your act together and find out what cost this man his life. I've never heard her get so sentimental before. It's gotten to the point where I don't even question the job. At least the dwarves threatening to gut me were interesting to look at in a lollipop guild kind of way. I took my suit to the cleaners. It's not cheap. I bought it with some of Oberon's money. This suit is the most expensive, normal thing I own. By the time the night of the dinner rolled around, I had taken some time to create a big glamour that would allow me to hide my Colt 1911 in a back holster. The glamour would trick anyone patting me down into thinking that the lump on my back wasn't actually there. I also made sure to mask it against metal detector technology too, just in case. I really wouldn't have much room for magical gadgets, which is always a pity. But not knowing what I'd be up against, I made sure to pack some of my holy water chewing gum and strapped a good knife of cold steel to my left calf, underneath my suit. I spoofed that against inspection too. I checked with my disembodied head, Gordon, to see if he had any leads. In the midst of my various changes in location, I had kinda gotten him lost in a bunch of various boxes. Now, finally settled in, I'd given him a permanent easy chair in my living room. He had access to my TV and 10 different streaming services. He preferred to watch nothing but news. Boring-ass little skull dude. Must have been the ghost of a boomer or something. Anyway, Gordon listened to the evidence, ate a raw ribeye steak. He doesn't have a central nervous system, so he only cooks it when he wants the taste sensation of a delicious, seared, medium-rare ribeye. And said, "Hey, look, Jimmy, you gotta give me more to go on here. Charity dinner, a lot of money, mysterious deaths. That could be anything from Satanists to Satan worshippers to actual Satan. Let's not forget your run-of-the-mill rich loonies who just like to eat people for funsies. Yeah, Senor Cabeza was right. I didn't have enough information. I hate that. The night of the event came. I drove my 20-year-old used Lexus to the event, paid some kid in a cheap suit $10 to park it, and then I walked up the stone path to the front door. There was a big sign that said, "Reserved for a private event," and a thick-necked bull of a bouncer was planted at the door, checking invitations by flashing a little light over each one. Couldn't see what he was looking for, but I had my thin little metal invitation in hand. There was another sign a bit closer to the door that said, "Please wait here." There were two couples in front of me. One was a short man with a woman in high heels who towered over him. She could have worn flats and been less obvious, but she clearly was the man in the relationship. The fellow was whispering to her in a manner that was not quiet. Granted, I couldn't understand him. It sounded like he was drunk and speaking some sort of Slavic language, perhaps Ukrainian or Armenian. The woman was irritated and leaning away from him. After a brief wait in a short line, and after the short king couple had left, I walked up and handed the security guard my invitation. He flashed his light on it, and I saw a glowing watermark that was heretofore unseen. He then flashed his light at me and asked, "Are you bringing in any foreign material or weapons of preternatural portent?" I realized that I had forgotten to include a veil for my soul stone. It was resting in my pocket as it always does. I'm really not used to people knowing what weapons of preternatural portent are. I sheepishly reached into my pocket and pulled it out. The man who had been standing in the shadows reached out and grabbed it, studied it all over, and said, "Common soulstone, barely even awakened. This is not a threat." What did he mean, not a threat? I'm plenty threatening when I need to be. The man gave the soulstone back to me and said, "Please enjoy the dinner, sir. I apologize for the delay. We will be able to tell if you use it." I slipped it back into my pants pocket. They didn't even bother using a metal detector to see if I was packing heat. The restaurant was decked out. I mean, there were incredible sparkling glass fountains everywhere that reflected candlelight. Each fountain looked like it was a miniature star. Now that I think about it, those fountains may have been made of diamond. There were golden statues everywhere, ancient Greek marble busts and mythological heroes posing all over the place. Exceedingly well-built waiters, wearing nothing but loincloths, darted around with trays of hors d'oeuvres. I snagged one as it darted past me. The waiter said, "Wagyu filet mignon, lightly seared, served with a lighter béarnaise sauce." Basically, it was near raw cow that had been hit with, I don't know, some fancy white ketchup. 10 out of 10, would recommend. Didn't do much to stop the feeling that everything was really, really weird here. Opulent did not describe it. I'd been to millionaire homes. I knew wasteful wealth. I didn't really want to mingle, so I kind of found an out-of-the-way place to stand so that I wouldn't have to talk to any of the 100 or so uber elite. I saw actors, politicians, sports stars. And the best part is, they were all so wealthy that they could afford to be eccentric. To my dismay, I was not allowed to remain aloof and standoffish for long. While I was staring at a waiter trying to make eye contact for another little treat, I noticed the smell of jasmine beside me. I swiveled my head and could not hide my reaction as a beautiful woman in a pure red gown stood before me. There were hourglass figures, and then there are hourglasses with legs like a gazelle. That was kind of weird control. Look, I became dehydrated and my heart dangerously arrhythmic. Her hair was the color of undyed wool, a sort of cream color that is both exotic and comforting at the same time. Her eyes were purple, and they sparkled like amethysts. Her skin was halfway between the golden hue of an ancient document and the bright rays of a fresh dawn. In her hands, she held a small clutch that looked heavy enough to be leather and gold. I could not tell what in the world her heritage was. "Good evening, sir," she murmured, keeping her voice low in that semi-quiet room. She had an Eastern European accent that purred. "May I help you find a seat? Or perhaps have a waiter come over with a list of wine or liqueur?" Lagavulin, if you've got it." She laughed a melodious giggle, full of life and genuine mirth. Where was the joke? Mr. Donavan. Jim Donavan, I said in my best bad Sean Connery impersonation. That earned me another giggle. Mr. Donavan, I am not a waitress. I will not be taking your order tonight. She could have easily said that in a haughty or offended manner, but instead she smiled with both her mouth and her eyes and beckoned to one of the half-naked waiters. Please fetch for Mr. Donavan a glass of our best Lagavulin? She looked at me as if to confirm, and I nodded at her. On the rocks, please, I said. Mama Donavan raised her boys to be polite, after all. The waiter sketched a little bow and left me alone with this masterpiece of a woman. Where are my manners? Please, my name is Iphigenia. Call me Ify. That's a lovely name, but I don't recognize it. Latin? Close, Mr. Donavan. Greek. It means strong-born. She gave me a ladylike flex of her muscles. I don't think beauty like hers could ever be the product of a gym. The pose did reveal her back and made my animal brain howl like a wolf. Fascinating, I echoed back, voice cracking. I was starting to like this woman. That never ends well. So, what's a lady like you doing in a dump like this? She swept the venue with her eyes and quirked an exaggerated eyebrow at my choice of words. If this is a dump, I would love to be the garbage woman. But no, my father is the head of the General Welfare Fund. In fact, he is the General Welfare. I beg your pardon? I asked. He is the Under-Secretary General in charge of the UN peacekeeping forces. His name is Lars Woofer. He likes puns. Ergo, General Welfare. Ah, I said. So this isn't a charity at all, then. She tilted her head and said, You're an odd one, Mr. Donavan. I would expect a guest of my father's to know that. I'm, new, I stuttered. Control, I'm not a secret agent. I don't go undercover for a reason. Her eyes glittered with mischief, but her voice was serious. Tell me who you are right now, or I'll scream. I sighed deeply, letting myself deflate as if defeated. I'm a private eye. A client of mine thinks his wife is cheating on him, so I'm here undercover to see if I can find some proof. The best lies are the ones that are closest to the truth. She nodded sagely, but her strange eyes had a quick look to them. Did I not put enough truth into it? I see. So, you don't actually belong here. Then, Mr. Donavan, may I call you Jim? You are in no small amount of danger. I think I like you. I don't want to see you hurt. I can take care of myself, thanks. Perhaps among mundane thugs and crooks, but things here are a bit uncanny. I don't think your mind is steeled against what you will see tonight. At this point, the waiter had come back with a glass with a very generous amount of scotch poured atop some very cold metal whiskey stones. He bowed to me, bowed deeply to Ify, and left without saying a word. So what is going on here? Some sort of orgy? Oh no, Jim, she giggled again. No, this is, well, Father is seeking the favor of the Greek god Athena, and so he must make a sacrifice. And then the guests will feast on the sacrifice. Good grief, what is this nonsense? Who's supposed to be sacrificed? My eyes darted around, looking for some woman in an all-white peasant dress. This was not my first sacrifice. Guess, she spurted out. I almost broke my neck swiveling. Then I turned to her. Me? What? I blurted louder than I should have. Several heads turned towards me. Ify laughed loudly, as though I had done something very funny, and waved the concern off. The guests smiled back at her and went back to their meaningless conversations. My father is an important man. He raised me with the knowledge that someday I would be sacrificed for his ambition. I was stunned. This was one of the dumbest things I had ever heard. Even lemmings, being driven off a cliff by National Geographic, had more of a survival instinct. You would allow your father to kill you and serve you like sushi to his guests. Oh no, I would be cooked. It is not healthy to eat uncooked human, after all, she said with a smile. If she felt sad, she wasn't showing it. No, look, this is ridiculous. You can't... But I can. This is my life, after all. I may have preferred a father who loved me, but that was not the hand I was dealt. I can't believe I'm hearing this woman. Fight back, I'll help you. I have done all I can to save myself. Don't worry, Mr. Donavan. Your conscience is clear here. She looked at me, directly at my heart. Just here, though. Her grin burst out like a crescent moon. But I think those with soiled consciences are more interesting. I didn't accept this. I grabbed her hand and turned around to go outside. I figured maybe we could jump the balcony and get to my car, maybe before the guards saw us. I couldn't even get that far, as a man in a military uniform, flanked by two thick-shouldered black men in black suits and sunglasses, interposed himself between me and the exit. I don't believe I've had the pleasure, Mr. He spoke with a thick Eastern European accent that sounded like it was a permanent, threatening whisper. He had a thick, brush-like mustache that would have made Stalin green with envy. On his chest was a raft of medals that proudly displayed the word Yugoslavia. He's a friend of mine, Daddy, Ify said hurriedly, slipping out of my grasp and coming around to her father. His name is Jim. Better not be a boyfriend, Ify. You know you can't be spoiled. Ify giggled again and said, No, not that kind of friend, Daddy. Good. I was coming to get you. It is time. He grabbed her hand in an iron grip. She melted into his grip and said, Can't I say goodbye to my friend first? He's so funny. No, come. He began dragging her away. I made to follow, but his two bodyguards stayed behind with me, made an impenetrable barrier of well-muscled flesh. Ify shot a look back to me and blew me a kiss. I wanted to shout, to rage, to rain fire down upon them, but when I reached out to the Verimvicio, it was like a wet blanket had been thrown over my head. Achtung, meine Damen und Herren. The sound of a fork tinging against crystal rang out, as General Wolfer spoke at that voice that was just above a menacing whisper. The two bodyguards each pivoted so that they were facing him and stepped back so there was one on either side of me and just behind, out of my peripheral. A spotlight turned on in the dimly lit room, and the general stood beside his daughter, who was kneeling beside him. He had rolled up the sleeve on his left arm and held a wickedly curved blade. I have been proud to be at the Ascension ceremonies for several of you, and it is my honor to have you here now. Nothing worthwhile in life can happen without sacrifice, and so, that I may join the highest ranks of the Order of Noctua, the world over, I offer my little Iphigenia as a potent and willing sacrifice to the goddess Athena, that she may grant me the wisdom and power that I am due. With this, he cut a long strip from his wrist to his elbow, and let the blood pool onto the floor in front of Ify. A servant ran up and bound his wounds as soon as the bowl on the floor had been filled. He began chanting, and I will not repeat it here. I don't want those words immortalized or misused. In smoke and thunder, with the screeching of an owl, a tall, gray-eyed woman stood before us. She wore a bronze breastplate and a skirt of thick leather. She wore no tunic underneath that breastplate. In her hands, she held a long spear and had a bronze shield thrown over her shoulder. I could tell things writhed on it like snakes, but there was a fog around that prevented closer inspection. It was like a Greek statue was made flesh and coming to life. I felt my mind focus, like her spear point, onto the events before me. When she spoke, I heard the sound of 100, 1,000 female voices echo out of her mouth. Old, young, happy, sad, in 1,000 different languages. But I heard English most clearly of all. Mortal man, why have you summoned me? The general stood his ground, his eyes wild with both pain and fear, but also with the type of lust one only sees in the truly corrupt. Goddess Athena, wisest of all, daughter of the Sky Father, I offer to you my virgin daughter, is a fitting tribute for her greatness. She is young and fresh, dedicated to her role." The goddess bent over and dipped the head of her spear in his blood, and brought the tip up to her lips, and licked the spear languidly. "A virgin, you say? I smell no virgin here, and certainly not on her. Who do you think you are lying to? Do you think you can cheat the daughter of Father God Zeus? Do you think we were pleased with Pelops? No." The two bodyguards beside me tensed. One slapped the other, as they exchanged looks. Ify looked smugly satisfied and said, "You spent so much time keeping me away from outside influences. You didn't think I couldn't seduce the two men you had watching me?" She laughed long and loud. I caught a flicker of movement as both guards began backing away from me and edged toward the door leading out to the balcony. I silently bid them Godspeed, knowing that they would be hunted if they didn't make good their escape. I wasn't feeling generous. They'd have to make their own way. Her father glared past me at the two men escaping. They caught his eye and ran. The general made to chase them, but before he could, Athena grabbed him by the throat and intoned like a judge. "I have been denied my sacrifice, but I will not be denied my trophy." She pulled, and the man's head separated from the rest of his body in a fountain of gore. The body collapsed while his head continued to mouth in pain. She was drenched in his blood. Her breastplate dripped, and the tongue printed on her shield lapped up the blood that fell on it. "I will keep you alive with the other fools that thought to cheat me." She thrust his head onto the top of her spear. His mouth was open in agony as his eyes kept darting every which way. Athena stopped and looked over her shoulder at me. She tilted her head and was suddenly immediately in front of me. There was no motion. She was as she wanted to be as soon as she conceived of it. With her free hand, she tilted my chin up to look her in the eye. "You are the one responsible for giving my cousin his new body. Loki has never been so happy. Thank you, mage. You may yet be of use to us." I don't know if I've ever been so terrified. She left in a screech of owls and feathers. She left behind her the briefest of voids. Then there was a snap. I felt my intellect ripple like a pool that has been struck by a rock. I don't think I can properly describe it. At one moment I was trying to remember why there wasn't any fast food at this place. And the next I had a stroke of inspiration about... I can't remember. Something about my soul stone. Or Gordon and Anubis. I can't remember. The moment was gone. I was back to normal. The master of ceremonies gone, but not forgotten. Guests began to quickly filter out of the restaurant. Not quite panicking, but definitely not getting distracted. The general's body had been left behind, cooling in the night. Blood spattered the elegant marble and gold all around. Ify bent down and addressed the headless body. "Well, Daddy, I always thought you'd get ahead, not be ahead." She giggled. I walked up beside her and said, "Party foul, losing his head like that." Ify's eyes sparkled. "That's the spirit. When you can keep your head about you, when all around you are losing theirs." She doubled up and clutched her sides, laughing hysterically. "I better control this before it gets any worse. Say, can I get your number?" And that control is how I started dating a hot, formerly virgin sacrifice. You know, to keep her out of trouble. Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This episode was written by Ken Dickason and performed by the same. Ben Wheeler edits, directs, produces, and herds cats. Ken Dickason performs our audio editing. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @PinkertonsGhosts, email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or
send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.